That's your senator. He votes with Biden or whoever happens to be furthest left. We got to get him elected. McCormick. We got to get McCormick. Press McCormick. He's a good man, too. He's a valiant fighter. He's a great gentleman. So we're going to bring him up for it. Can we bring him up for a couple of minutes later? A little bit later. All right. You get ready, McCormick. You get ready. I'll get you up here. The world will see a vibrant Republican Party that is bigger, stronger, more confident, and more united than ever before. That's what we are. We're the most united party. Now, I'm watching the fake news go crazy because they're saying the Republican Party has not been united since Ronald Reagan like it is right now. It was united under Ronald Reagan the second time. It was very united. And they said there's never been anything like it. They've never seen a movement like this. Make America great again. You know, Joe Biden talks about we have to stop MAGA. MAGA means make America great again, Joe. It means make America great again. That's all we want to do. If he was doing the job, I wouldn't even be doing this. I'd be at some beautiful place with a gorgeous ocean, the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look.
Thank you.
There he is right there. Right there, see something going on. He's laying down.
Yeah, he's laying down.
Instead, I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a senator elected and to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look.
And it's not easy because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here, and it's much tougher than if it happened. We had the strongest border ever in recorded history. We had the best border. In fact, if they could ever put up a chart, I don't know if they can do it. Do you guys have access to that chart that I love so much? You don't mind if I go off teleprompter, do you? Because these teleprompters are so damn boring. I try and explain that. Oh, there's a wow. You guys are doing it. They're getting better with time. My guys, take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country.
Make yourself small, bro. I don't know what's going on.
Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something to say, take a look what happened.
The task force final report states, around 9:30 a.m, Crooks purchased a 5'5" ladder from a store in Bethel Park. At around 11 a.m, he drove his vehicle in the vicinity of the Butler Farm Show grounds. He stayed about 70 minutes and then returned home. At 1 p.m, the Secret Service opened magnetometers to screen the public attending the rally. At approximately 1:30 p.m, Crooks' father gave him the rifle that would later be used in the assassination attempt. The firearm was legally transferred to Crooks by his father the year prior. Crooks told his father that he was going to the local gun range, as he had done many times previously. Crooks left his residence at 1:45. At 1:54, he purchased 50 rounds of Hornady .223 Remington full metal jacket ammunition and proceeded to the campaign event location. According to the FBI, he presumably discarded the ladder and a rifle case behind a vacant store after 2 p.m. At 3:48 p.m, Crooks returned to the vicinity of the Butler Farm Show grounds. At approximately 3:51 p.m, Crooks flew a drone approximately 200 yards from the Butler Farm Show grounds for around 11 minutes. The drone and controller were later found in his car. Analysis did not reveal any photos or videos taken by the drone on the day of the rally, but the task force confirmed that he was live streaming and would have been able to view the feed on the controller and could have viewed the podium and surrounding area where the former president was to be speaking later that day. As mentioned in the previous video from this series, the CUAS operator who was supposed to detect drones had a faulty Ethernet cable that prevented him from doing so.
That is something that I briefed in the closed door, and again, something that has cost me a lot of sleep. That what if we had geolocated him because that counter-UAS platform had been up? We could have perhaps found him. We could have maybe stopped him. Maybe on that particular day, he would have decided this isn't the day to do it because law enforcement just found me flying my drone.
At 4:19, one of 3 local counter-snipers in the AGR building, Jason Woods from Beaver County ESU, goes off shift and exits the AGR building. The task force asked him,
"And that was a scheduled thing you had to depart by that time?"
Yes. So I was up in the air about staying. And whenever we got the notification that Trump was running an hour or more late, I started doing the math in my head, and I wasn't going to be able to make the next event that I had to go to.
One of the other snipers who stayed in the building, Greg Nichols, said,
"He had a family event that was scheduled. I believe his wife bought him a Father's Day gift for a concert or something."
A July article from the New York Times described what happened after Woods left the building. Outside, the officer noticed a young man with long stringy hair sitting on a picnic table near the warehouse. So at 4:26 p.m, he texted his colleagues about the man.
Someone followed our lead and snuck in and parked by our cars, just so you know. I'm just letting you know because you see me go out with my rifle and put it in my car so he knows you guys are up there. He's sitting to the direct right on a picnic table about 50 yards from the exit.
The counter-sniper who sent the text confirmed to the New York Times that the individual he saw was later identified as the gunman. But an account called Ironclad USA had posted a video on TikTok of Crooks at 4:26, 580 yards away. I commented, "Are you sure that was at 4:26? That is the exact same time a sniper texted other snipers that Crooks was at the picnic table." And he replied, "Yes sir, exactly 4:26 p.m. He also showed the time and location of the recording. Kevin Rojek from the FBI said,
"Prior witness interviews indicated the subject was in the area of the AGR building at 4:26 p.m. Subsequent digital evidence review shows the subject was in fact near the Farm Show airstrip, walking past a row of vendors outside the secure perimeter, approximately a half-mile away from the AGR grounds at 4:26 p.m.
An internal PSP report states, Crooks' vehicle is captured on a mobile license plate reader parked along Whitestown Road near the front of the AGR office buildings. Crooks then enters the event grounds and is seen near the vendor areas at approximately 4:26 p.m. Crooks was then observed at approximately 4:45 p.m. on the AGR grounds outside of the event confines. Both of these sightings were established through cellular telephone camera footage obtained from attendees of the event. An attendee, John Mallis, captured Crooks walking onto the AGR grounds on his car's dash cam sometime in the afternoon.
It's not bad. It looks like it's in the shade if you want to park and go.
Turned out it really was him,
he said.
So it's a video of him, we think, leaving his vehicle. There was a grey Hyundai, looked like a Sonata, that was parked there. He wasn't carrying anything, he was just in his, just his regular clothes. No backpack or anything, just walking to the building. And then about 2 minutes after that, somebody else shot a video of him on that side of the building through the fence.
Crooks' vehicle was a Hyundai Elantra parked on this road in front of AGR. A grey Elantra was filmed in front of the entrance. An FBI timeline states, at 4:43, Crooks parks his vehicle on Whitestown Road in the vicinity of AGR. Between 4:44 and 5:47, he walks toward and between AGR buildings and returns to his vehicle several times. The task force final report states, Crooks used his vehicle to store improvised explosive devices and the drone that he flew earlier.
Alexis McAdams is live at the Trump rally at the fairgrounds in Butler, Pennsylvania, standing by for his arrival. Hello, Alexis.
Hi, Shannon. A very hot day here in the swing state of Pennsylvania, but that didn't stop these massive crowds behind us.
Okay. This is no trespassing. Oh,
sorry. We didn't see any signs.
Mirko, a sniper in the AGR building, said,
And at one point there was a maintenance. The gentleman from AGR that was in charge of maintenance that let us in the building originally, he also showed up along the fence line trying to get people to move, and they weren't having it.
This guy's kicking everybody out. He's raging. This guy's raging.
Running is a victory. Run, boy, run. Beauty lies behind the hills.
Chris Copus, a member of the Butler ESU Quick Reaction Force, was stationed inside the secure perimeter near the barns behind the stage. He grew concerned with people clustering by the AGR fence line and grabbed a pair of binoculars to observe.
There was a few people that I was attempting to monitor due to just things that were abnormalities to me, based on, circumstances or body language. Mr. Crooks was one of them, which was sometime between the 4:30, 5 o'clock time, something like that. It was probably sometime closer to the 5 p.m. When I first observed him, he was seated on, coincidentally, the concrete wall that he was photographed to be sitting on. He came and went from that position multiple times. I identified this person as not paying attention to the venue, not paying attention to anyone around him. Anybody else that was there was either trying to seek shade, they had maybe a lawn chair with them, they are dressed in a way that would basically signify some form of participation in the rally. A lot of them were up against the outer perimeter fence line. One of these isolated individuals was drawn way back to the corner of the AGR building, secluded, playing on the phone. At one point, he went between some of the building areas of the complex, of the AGR complex. So with him kind of out of sight, then coming back, continued to draw my suspicion. I observed that he was looking up at my sniper elements, or what I believed he believed was our sniper elements, because there was open windows, well, as much as they could open, and then again would kind of come and go.
He told several people about the suspicious people he was watching, including a state trooper that was in between the two fence lines.
The state trooper and the sheriff that was posted there, based on what I was observing and the information we are giving them, they did actually go to the outer perimeter fence line and tried to interact with multiple different subjects that we requested. Mr. Crooks, unfortunately, was not one of those people that was able to have a face-to-face interaction. Based on some of that information I was able to give the trooper, he was actually able to get a couple plainclothes vice unit officers to go over to that area, and they kind of walked in, did a circle, and walked back out.
A Butler ESU CAT team leader, Aaron Zalaponi, said Copus told him about the people by the fence.
It was just the way they were acting around the property owner, who kept coming by to kind of chase them off the fence line, like they were playing cat and mouse with the property owner. At that point, we had a gray shirt, which later on turned out to be the shooter, a red shirt, and a yellow shirt. The gray shirt guy, Crooks, is gone. I saw him about 3-4 minutes, and then he was gone.
Crooks was filmed walking by the AGR fence line at 5:06 p.m. This is Corey Comperatore, who was shot and killed by Crooks 64 minutes later. The Hercules II Secret Service snipers took their positions on the north barn around this time, and the Hercules I snipers took theirs about a minute later. Hercules II mostly faced towards the AGR buildings, though a tree was blocking part of the roof, while Hercules I mostly faced the other direction. Zalaponi said,
"So as far as the red shirt and yellow shirt, again, they're just up and down the fence line. The red shirt, his phone was constantly recording.
The red shirt, aka Dave Stewart, recorded this footage. A sheriff's deputy who was posted near the fence said,
"Well, I kind of watched the area there, until at one point I was waved down by an individual across the gate, or the fence there. Well, I looked at the trooper next to me. I don't know what he was doing, so I just drove up there. And there were two males. They were in an argument. The one said he was the owner of the AGR building and he wanted all the people off the property and he was mad that everybody was there, said they shouldn't be there. But I told him, hang tight. I went and got the trooper. We walked over there and basically told everybody to leave the area. Well, that only happened for so long, until 5 minutes later there's a bunch of new people that come up."
2 ESU members within the inner perimeter discussed an area further down the fence line. The red shirt and yellow shirt were detained after the shooting, but didn't appear to have anything to do with it and were released. Going back to Crooks, Mirko described seeing him from his AGR window position.
Shortly before 5 p.m. is when I observed Crooks initially. He stood out. He was walking around the grassy area between AGR and the secondary fence line, kept looking up, looking at the building. That made me feel as though he was potentially looking at the window to see if there was somebody inside the building.
He was suspicious. He kept looking up at the window I was posted at. And as he kept looking up at the window I was posted at, he walked in up against the building to the point where I couldn't see him, almost like he was hiding.
I walked over and spoke to Greg Nickel, and I asked him if he had seen this individual, and I described him with the long hair, gray t-shirt, khaki shorts. At that time, Nickel had not observed him. A short time later, Nickel tells me that he does see the individual I described. So I walk back over to Nickel, and at that point, Nickel had showed me he had taken 2 photographs of Crooks. I identified him as that was the individual I was describing earlier.
The Beaver County sniper asked me to come speak with him, and when I went over there, he'd showed me he'd taken 2 photographs of Crooks. I believe it was about 5:15. The Beaver County sniper saw him outside the window again on the ground with a rangefinder at that point.
At about, it was minutes later, I had returned back to my post in that office. Nickel yells to me, he's out here again. He has a rangefinder.
About what time is that?
I would estimate about 5:10 p.m.
So shortly after you guys see him for the first time?
Correct. I mean, like I said, we had seen him before 5 o'clock originally. I had seen him. It was probably about a few minutes after 5 when Nickel had alerted me that he had seen him and taken a picture of him. So once Nickel had seen him with the rangefinder, I did not personally observe him with the rangefinder. He again returned to that cement wall area of the AGR building. And then, according to Nickel, he walked north along the western side of the building. We lost sight of him. So I look across, and I see Officer Copas standing over there looking at our building with binoculars. So I text message Officer Copas. This is right about 5:15.
He says he didn't try to notify Uniform Patrol when they first observed Crooks, but they did reach out to command after seeing the rangefinder. But there was a significant delay between seeing the rangefinder and reaching out to command. The task force interim report states, Mirko stated that he encouraged Nickel to notify local law enforcement leadership, but it is not clear that either did so, although Mirko did send a series of text messages to Copas at 5:15 that included a description of Crooks. The final message stated he has a rangefinder. Copas, and more importantly, Commander Lenz, were monitoring the Ops 4 ESU channel and could have known about the rangefinder at 5:15 if Mirko had used the radio instead of texting. Copas said,
I received 3 text messages from Sniper Mirko inside the building, and because we had a kind of a text back and forth where he was kind of observing that I was watching that area with a set of binoculars. So these text messages returned and pretty much were saying, are you watching this guy up against our building? Long hair, gray t-shirt, white shorts. He has a rangefinder. So, obviously, as soon as I seen that series of messages, I presume or know exactly who he is referring to. Those 3 text messages specifically came in time-stamped on my phone at 5:15, and I didn't see them for 20, 30 minutes. I randomly just checked my phone and saw I had messages.
The only 3 reasons I know people that have rangefinders is for golfing, hunting, or some form of distance shooting, or to want to know how far away that target is.
The task force final report states, in his interview with the task force, Sniper Assistant Team Lead Greg Nickel seemed to recall first seeing the rangefinder several minutes later, perhaps after 5:30, but contemporaneous messages in possession of the task force that are described in this report indicate that the rangefinder was known to Mike Mirko no later than 5:15 p.m. suggesting that Sniper Assistant Team Lead Greg Nickel had likely informed Mike Mirko of the rangefinder by that time. Greg Nickel said he first saw Crooks maybe a little after 5.
So I was kind of moving around the building a little bit on binocular glass and doing the observation. And I'd moved from the room that I was in into the hallway and was standing where Woods was positioned prior. As I was just looking out at the crowd, I noticed an individual that was walking pretty close to the building, kind of looking up and down the building, and just thought it was odd. You could actually tell he was trying to look into the building. He then walked, it would have been, to the front of the building, which would have been southeast, I guess, and then around the building, and when he did that is when I lost sight of him. And then after a few minutes, I was going back into the room that I was in, and I seen Mike standing there, and me and him were having conversation. He was like, hey, I just seen this kid out here walking around, looking up and down the building. I think he knows we're in here. I said, did the kid have long hair and a gray t-shirt? He's like, yeah. I said, I seen him on the side of the building too, doing the same thing. So at that point we then separated, and then we were basically looking for him again. And after a little bit of looking around, I was standing in the room that I was positioned in, but I was in the first window in the room, not the second window where my rifle was, because it was easier. I could get closer up to the window. I was looking out. I couldn't see nothing. And I'm like, man, where is this kid? I was up pretty close to the window at this point, and as I brought my binoculars down, I just happened to look down and I was like, there he is. He was sitting directly below me.
This is from the southwestern corner of that second building?
Yes. And there is like a little wall that's about 2.5, 3 feet high, and he was just sitting on it. So I don't know why. Maybe the opportunity, and because he was so close, I'm like, I got my phone. The first one is the one of his back. That was the first picture that I took. And then I took that second one, which was the side view.
Did you take those photos and immediately send them?
No. So I had taken these 2 pictures. I want to say at 5:13 and 5:14 or 5:14 and 5:15 roughly.
The initial Beaver ESU after action report and other reports from Congress claim the photos were taken at 5:14.
So I had taken those pictures and sat there and, was watching him for a little bit. Then he had got up and moved, and I lost sight of him. So I had then got up and I started to move to different windows within the building, and when I got to, it would have been the opposite side of the building, first window. So I went over there and was still looking around for this individual, and I had noticed over across the property there was a bike sitting there with a backpack, and it was underneath the tree. I thought it was kind of strange, so I took a picture of it.
The Beaver ESU after action report and the task force final report claim the bike photo was taken at 5:28. Kevin Rojek from the FBI said,
Numerous media outlets have also reported a bicycle and a backpack attributed to the subject. However, our investigation has determined that neither of these items belong to the shooter. In fact, we have positively identified and interviewed the owner of both of those items.
Nichols said,
So after I had taken the picture of the bike, I was still looking to try to locate Mr. Crooks. I was back in the original window that I was in on the south side of the building. In the first window there, that's when I noticed that he had been sitting back on the stoop down there where I originally had seen him. I noticed he was on a cell phone, and I was sitting there with binoculars. So I zoom in on his cell phone, and I could tell that he's looking at news feeds. Which particular ones, I don't know, but he's scrolling through news feeds on his phone. So then he takes his phone and he puts it in his pocket, and he pulls out, it's a rangefinder. I noticed him looking through this rangefinder. He was looking towards the stage, and kind of just in different areas, general areas, looking out but in the direction of the stage. I was like, yeah, this is not right. So I was like, hey Mike, and he's like, what's up? I said, a dude's out with a rangefinder looking through it.
The Beaver ESU after action report puts this sighting at 5:32, but according to Mirko's testimony and text, it was 5:15 at the latest. Corey Comperatore was filmed again with the Hercules 1 sniper team in the background at 5:21. While nobody else knew about the rangefinder, police shut down their intersections for Trump's motorcade.
All BT units, shut down your intersections.
Oh boy, the motorcade, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a look. Here comes the motorcade. Our President Trump is in one of those vehicles. There he is. We don't know which one, but we know he's there. Look at the motorcycles. Our law enforcement, thank you to our law enforcement today. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for keeping us safe.
Matt Wagner, the Butler ESU sniper team leader on the motorcade side of the crowd, texts the local sniper group chat, game time, and Mirko responds with a thumbs up.
You can open all intersections.
The task force asked Mirko,
What kind of actions are you and Nickel taking? Because at this point he's moved. Crooks has moved around the building, right?
That's correct. So we are essentially going window to window with binoculars trying to pinpoint where he's at. It was 5:40-ish. Kopis called me. We discussed it over the phone. He said he did observe Crooks. He was also watching another, I believe, 1 or 2 suspicious individuals that he could see from his vantage point.
Okay. So Kopis calls, says he observes Mr. Crooks. Where does he say he is?
He lost him going around the western side of the building. So at that point, we did notify through our text thread, through the sniper text thread, so all snipers were aware at that point.
What triggered you guys then to report that up the chain of command?
I had mentioned it to Nickel that we need to notify command, and as we continued to look for him to see if that was progressing any further from a suspicious person, I can't tell you exactly what made us do it at that point, but that's when we reached out to our team leader, well, the sniper team leader, Wagner.
Got it. So you had said reach out earlier to Nickel, but then it didn't happen until afterwards, because you guys were continuing to look?
Correct.
Nickel finally texted his photos of Crooks over 20 minutes after he took them, and Mirko texted about a rangefinder that Nickel told him about. The task force asked him,
Why did you decide to send the photos at 5:38, 10 to 20 minutes after you took them? Why at that point?
Because until I had seen him with the rangefinder, it was just he was an odd person, but once the rangefinder, now he's a very, very suspicious person to me.
The task force final report states, Crooks was known to have a rangefinder as early as 5:10 p.m, but this was not reported to local law enforcement leadership until approximately 5:38 p.m. Though he says he meant to say lurking instead of learning, he texted the local sniper group chat the following.
Kid learning around building we are in, AGR I believe it is. I did see him with a rangefinder looking towards stage, FYI. If you want to notify SS Snipers to look out. I lost sight of him. Also a bike with backpack sitting next to it in rear of building that was not seen earlier.
BTPD Patrolman Blasco was also the assistant sniper team leader for Butler ESU and was one of the people that received this text.
On July 13th, while working for Butler Township, Patrolman Blasco was stationed with a Secret Service agent where former President Trump's motorcar arrived.
He said,
So 5:38 got that text message. Roughly 5 minutes-ish, Patrolman Tedeschi, who I work with, stopped at my location. I let him know about the picture. I showed him the picture. I asked Patrolman Tedeschi to go over there, help look. At the same, within that 5 minutes, I also showed that to the Secret Service agent.
But that agent didn't radio that information over his Secret Service channel to the security room.
I asked Blasco if Secret Service was aware, and he said, yes, our post is aware.
And is it fair to say that based off of him telling you that the Secret Service post was aware, that you did not reach out to the post?
Correct.
Although the Secret Service post, the security room, was made aware of the rangefinder, it was never put over Secret Service radio, as we'll soon see, so it would have been helpful for this agent to do so. Tedeschi drove down Meridian Road to the water tower near AGR to look for Crooks. He said,
There was a trooper sitting there. It was a state trooper in a marked unit. I said something to the trooper about, hey, there's a guy. I gave a description. He's like, no. He didn't see him either. I looked around. I could see, from the tower to AGR, I could see there was like nobody fitting that description. I think there was maybe like one person walking through. I go back out to Meridian Road, and I again stop and talk to Blasco and Secret Service because they're still talking about this. The Secret Service said, if you find him, we'll talk to him.
Tedeschi then went looking for him in the other direction. 2 minutes after Nichols' rangefinder text to the sniper group chat, Wagner, the Butler ESU sniper team leader, responds.
Call it into command and have a uniform check it out. Because he texted me, I'm thinking to myself, don't text me. Put it over the radio. That's important.
The task force asked Nichols if he called command like Wagner said, to which he replied,
Yes.
And when they say command, what does that mean?
That would have been, Butler had a command post set up. So that would have been like the radio communication through our tactical channel to them.
Nichols finally radioed command about the rangefinder at 5:43.
Just an FYI, we had a younger white male, long hair, lurking around the AGR building. He was viewed with a rangefinder sighting the stage. He was up against the building, believe he was looking up at us, and then he walked around the side of the building. We lost sight of him. Also, there's a bike with a large backpack sitting beside it that's parked in the rear of the building that wasn't there earlier.
Copy. We will send somebody to check.
Copy.
Can you tell me, like, what your jobs were that day?
I was the commander for all the local tactical units, and it was my job pretty much to gather info that they're giving me, pass it up the chain, make sure the info gets to where it should be. But these guys are the ones that actually do the work. And then when they saw the bad guy with a rangefinder, they passed that up the chain to me.
We're observing he has a rangefinder, and from their perspective, it looked like he was lazing the podium.
That escalated our level of concern. We reported the suspicious person an hour before the actual shooting, and no one showed up.
While they noticed the suspicious person an hour before the shooting, they only radioed about it half an hour before the shooting. Nichols said,
Basically, I just notified the command that I had seen the kid out there with a rangefinder, and he was suspicious and needed checked on. Basically, they acknowledged it and said that they'd send somebody out to check on it.
Nichols had radioed the Butler ESU commander Edward Lenz in the local mobile command post. The Senate interim report states, the Butler ESU commander called a PSP sergeant stationed in the Secret Service security room who was his primary point of contact and liaison to the Secret Service. In a subsequent interview, the PSP sergeant stated he received information about a suspicious person near the AGR building. Phone logs put this call at 5:44. The task force final report states, Sergeant Olaya stated that he verbally communicated this information to Secret Service personnel in the security room while still on the phone with Lenz. Commander Lenz also stated that he heard Sergeant Olaya immediately relay this information to others in the security room during their phone call. The Secret Service security room supervisor, Jeffrey Burr, did not radio this information to the Secret Service detail near Trump.
So I called the state police sergeant who was in the Secret Service Command Center, made him aware of that report, and I could hear him relaying that information in real time to somebody that's in that Secret Service Command Center.
I immediately contacted the state police sergeant And I know for a fact he took that information and passed it forward to the Secret Service.
And the Secret Service, they were actually answering you?
I can tell you 100% that the Secret Service was absolutely aware. They had all of the information that we were telling them. The sergeant from the state police told me many times, everything I told him was passed face to face to the Secret Service. But there's no doubt in my mind, they had the information.
The Secret Service security room supervisor didn't know where the AGR was at first. When he was asked if Alea mentioned the rangefinder, he said,
I do remember a mention of a rangefinder. Yes.
And what did you do after you received that information from him?
So, at that time, Agent Castro was fully embedded in the command post. The discussion was essentially, get whatever information that is available in contact, starting with the CS response team, so that they could go out and start looking for the individual.
And that was an instruction that you gave to Agent Castro?
Yeah, we had a discussion about it. My understanding is that he contacted CS response, and I believe he forwarded it a picture that he was able to get from Sergeant O'Lear.
And you said you also discussed sending out protective intelligence?
Yeah. I believe that they were notified at the same time as CS response, but through Agent Castro. That was my understanding.
The Senate final report notes that Agent Castro said he didn't speak to the Protective Intelligence Response Agent, and she said she was actually informed by someone else and wasn't dispatched. Castro also said he suggested sending out the CS response to the security room agent. The Senate final report also notes that because the CS response agent was contacted by phone and not over radio, the message did not go out to the Secret Service post-standers, counter-snipers, and the Donald Trump detail.
And what would have been required in your mind for you to put that out over the radio?
Well, to put that we were looking for suspicious personnel over the radio, I would wait till there was like a threat or something specific to report rather than a person that we're just looking for.
When was the first time you heard he was near the AGR building?
I think that was in the initial report. I believe that was like his last known location. Someone on the outer perimeter. There's really only 2 assets available to us from a Secret Service perspective to dispatch. And those would have been the PI response and the CS response, because they're really the only people who are capable of leaving the interior secure perimeter to go on the outside to look for somebody.
The suspect was on the outer perimeter. He got up on the AGR building. He shot, he hit the Protect D, and he killed someone and hurt other people. So, the threat, whether or not you recognized it at that time, it seems like there was some urgency. So that's what we're trying to understand is what folks were doing and why information was or wasn't relayed. So what did you relay out of the security that day?
I was on the radio a lot during that day. There were a lot of medical calls.
So, I guess that's what I don't understand, is why then you didn't relay out a suspicious individual if you were relaying all these other things out that day? Is the communication standard less for a suspicious individual than it is for medical or for other things you may have to communicate out of the radio?
No. In this instance, the appropriate people who could deal with a suspicious person outside of the secure perimeter were dispatched.
What time did former President Trump get on the stage? Do you know if it was after you received the initial reports at 5:45 of the suspicious individual?
I believe it was after, yes.
Our understanding, I think, is it was around 6 o'clock. So, there was time to potentially not have him go on stage. None of this was something that was discussed in the security room?
So as we discussed this time frame here, we were looking for this person for, it sounds like, 15 minutes or so. If you're saying he went on stage at 6 o'clock, I highly doubt that they would have held him off stage for 15 minutes while we were trying to look for somebody who could have been anywhere.
But they didn't have the information about the suspicious individual from the security room?
No.
So they wouldn't have been able to even make that determination?
No.
What really gets me is that there was a threat and they let him come out on stage. If they would have just held him, none of this would have ever happened.
Would there ever be an instance where you would relay out a suspicious individual to, say, a site agent or a lead agent at an event?
Hypothetically speaking, sure.
But in this case, an individual who had a rangefinder near where the protectee was going to be, approximately 15 minutes before a protectee takes stage, didn't rise to that level in your mind?
Again, we dispatched the teams that were available to investigate what was determined to be a suspicious person.
You mentioned earlier that you directly reported to Site Agent Perez on the day of the July 13th event?
Yeah.
I understand that you relay to those individuals, but why not also relay it to your direct report?
At that time, I thought that was the best course of action.
If you were working an event today, would you relay on the radio information about a suspicious individual with a rangefinder?
With the benefit of hindsight, there's probably things that I would do differently. Sure.
Is that one of the things?
The only thing that I would have done differently is I would have probably looped in the site agent. That's it.
You wouldn't have relayed that over the radio even today, knowing everything that we know now?
I can't say.
When Sergeant Olea was asked if he saw the security room agent communicate the rangefinder information over the radio, he said,
"I don't know. After I sat outside the perimeter, I got a distinct impression that there's, like, a lack of urgency."
The Senate final report states, the assistant to the special agent in charge of the Donald Trump detail stated in his transcribed interview that the information should have been elevated to someone at his level. He could have potentially prevented the president from taking the stage while the suspicious individual was being tracked down. We'll come back to the PI response and the CS response soon, but around the same time that Lenz called the security room, he also gave information about Crooks to the sheriff sergeant in the local mobile command post. At 5:45, Lenz radios the ESU Ops 4 channel to tell Nickel that PSP and sheriffs were en route, and the sheriff sergeant radios the sheriff's channel. The sheriff's deputy, who drove up to the fence earlier, responds, though some details get muddled along the way. Nickel hadn't radioed a clothing description.
4th year from TAC Command, PSP and sheriff should be en route. If you get a visual again, let me know.
No problem. Be on the lookout for a white male, young white male, blonde hair with a backpack. Might be on the AGR side fence line.
Do you know what color shirt?
No clothing description. And he had a bicycle.
I cut you off. I didn't hear you.
Bicycle and a backpack.
White shirt with a hat?
Young white male, blonde hair, backpack on a bicycle.
I see somebody that matches that description, but I can't tell if they're young or not. Black hat on white shirt. On a bicycle.
4th year from TAC Command.
Good.
Any clothing description?
A gray t-shirt, light colored khaki shorts.
Copy. Green t-shirt, khaki shorts.
Where is he located?
Right in front of me, post 4.
Gray t-shirt?
White t-shirt, backpack, black hat on a bicycle.
Yeah, this one has a gray shirt with khaki pants.
There's a bunch of people over here, but I don't see anybody else on a bicycle matching that description.
The task force final report states, another costly delay occurred between 5:45 p.m. when the Butler ESU commander radioed that PSP and sheriff should be en route, and the actual mobilization of law enforcement officers, which did not occur until closer to 6 p.m. as Butler Township Police Department personnel left their traffic posts and converged on the AGR complex. As of 4:45, the law enforcement personnel on patrol closest to AGR were a PSP and Butler County Sheriff's Office pairing posted between the two fences separating the Butler Farm Show from AGR. Those personnel were not supposed to leave their posts, and as a result, they were not en route or otherwise moving at all. The task force asked Lenz's deputy commander, who was also in the local command trailer, about who was and wasn't sent.
So at 5:45, Lenz tells Ops 4 that Pennsylvania State Police and the sheriff's deputies are en route after hearing the message from Nickel. Do you know why Butler Township was not also sent at that time?
Officer Blasco had also given the information to them, so somewhere in that timeline they also started to move. So, to double give it out, they were already doing what we would have said for them to do.
So your understanding is that Blasco had already commissioned BTPD officers to start heading that way?
He had already expressed that person of interest, and the officers had started moving that direction.
There is only evidence that Blasco sent Tedeschi, who was driving the long way around the block. Lenz wouldn't radio the info over the Police Ops 3 channel, and other officers wouldn't begin heading towards AGR for another 10 minutes. Unfortunately, we can't draw from Lenz's interview with the task force because, as covered in the previous video in the series, it is the only one of the 46 that has been withheld. The task force asked Blasco,
Were you surprised that Lenz didn't say that Butler Township Police was also being sent? No. I think he called me, and when I was going through my phone, I saw the fact that he called me. So talking to him, I think it might have been make sure I was aware. And I think I might have told him at that point in time, hey, I've relayed to Butler Township guys to go help to look for it at the same time. Wasn't that Lieutenant Pearson's role? Yeah, it was. But we all worked together.
Lenz only spoke with Blasco on the phone 30 minutes after this. Perhaps Blasco spoke with the Deputy Commander Crawford, whose call logs I don't have access to. Lieutenant Pearson was the BTPD representative in the local command trailer. He said he didn't remember Nickel's radio communication about Crooks and didn't become aware of him until about 20 minutes later.
A member of the QRF had observed several suspicious persons in the area of the AGR building, one of whom ended up being the shooter. This information was relayed to uniformed patrol officers assigned to post along the perimeter and was discussed with the snipers posted inside the AGR building. A Beaver County sniper in the AGR building was able to take a photograph of the suspicious male while he sat near the AGR building, and again later saw him using a rangefinder pointing towards the stage. And this information was promptly reported to the Pennsylvania State Police and the Secret Service Command Center, the Butler County Sheriff's Office, and the Butler Township Police Department. Had these officers not picked up on this suspicious behavior, we likely would not have known anything was wrong until shots were fired.
At 5:45, Butler ESU Sniper Team Leader Wagner texts the Secret Service Sniper Team Leader John Marciniak about Crooks. He writes,
"At AGR, sending a uniformed office to check him out."
before passing along Nichols' text and photos. Marciniak responds,
"Roger. I'll notify teams on AGR side."
He said he meant he'd email Hercules 2 on the north barn closest to AGR, as well as his Hercules 1 partner on the south barn. He found the rangefinder extremely suspicious, but he didn't contact the counter-sniper response agent. He said he needed to locate the suspicious person before doing so. Also at 5:45, Nickel texted a Beaver ESU group chat the photos, adding,
"If you want to send this to whoever at command, if you have cell number, I wanted to get the pictures of this individual to Thomas Shane, who is our deputy commander, who I know has their commander's phone numbers."
Shane texted the pictures to Lenz at 5:47.
I'm trying to forward photographs of the individual to you from my CR unit.
Perfect, thank you.
Shane replied to Nickel in the Beaver group chat and told him the pictures were sent. The task force final report states, at 5:47 p.m, Lenz received the photographs of Crooks and forwarded them to Sergeant Olea. Due to issues with cell service, they did not immediately go through. Sergeant Olea eventually received the photographs of Crooks and forwarded them at 5:51 p.m. to Special Agent Castro in the security room. On the ESU Ops 4 channel, Wagner radioed that he sent the pictures out over the Signal app, as well as to the Hercules snipers. Copus received the pictures on Signal.
10-0-1, I sent pictures out to the Signal app. 10-0-1 command, I also notified Hercules.
10-1, 10 Alpha 12. Signal app pictures. Positive ID, that's the guy we're talking about.
On the Sheriff's channel, Sheriff Sergeant Saul said he tried to send the pictures to his deputy, Bobby Joe, after having some communication issues earlier.
Bobby Joe, I'll try to send you the picture of him.
Mike Priolo was also in the Beaver ESU group chat and sent Nichols pictures to Butler ESU Deputy Commander Crawford.
4 Delta 1 to 10 Charlie 3, I just sent you a text message with the individual pictures though.
Photos received.
When Lenz called PSP Sergeant Olea in the security room about the rangefinder at 5:44, Olea called 2 PSP troopers to inform them and was told they would start to look. One of them was paired with the Secret Service PI response agent and relayed this information to her. The other was a uniformed PSP corporal nearby. The Senate final report states, in a transcribed interview with the committee, the PI response agent asserted that the job of a PI response agent is to respond to any unusual or threatening individuals in the site, including any individual with an unusual interest in the protectee. According to documents reviewed by committee staff, the PI response agent is paired up with a local law enforcement agent, in this case a Pennsylvania state trooper, to ensure fluid channels of communication between state and local law enforcement with the Secret Service.
It's just, oh, this is it. We're getting very close. The final songs until he comes out.
The PI response agent said,
"There was no physical description, only a person with a rangefinder on the fence line outside the venue. I believe my trooper counterpart told me that it was one of the local tactical teams that was reporting that. So we grabbed one of the uniformed troopers. He and my trooper counterpart and I, the 3 of us on a golf cart, drove around the stage through the parking lot to try to get to the area stage right, where the tactical teams were staged, to make contact with that team and figure out what they saw and where this person was located."
Who sent you there? Who dispatched you there?
I wasn't dispatched by anyone. I was given information that this was being reported, through my counterpart, through the uniformed trooper. We went as far as we could until we came upon the chain link fence, and then we drove along the chain link fence up until we came to a locked gate, where there was a uniformed trooper with a patrol car outside the gate and the local tactical teams. Our intention was to go outside the venue to that industrial area. However, we got to this locked gate. No one had a key. So, at that point, we were talking with the local tactical team and the uniformed trooper with the vehicle, asking them what they've seen. Where is this person? It was unknown where they were.
She was outside post 5.
The only way to leave the venue would have been to climb the fence, or to get in a car and drive onto a public road and leave the venue completely. I asked my PSP counterpart, do we have uniformed officers in this area? I didn't know. I asked him. He said, I don't know, let me check. He gets on the phone and he's making contacts. So at that time, my action is, let's get some people over here looking for this guy. I asked my counterpart to reach out to local police.
The Senate interim report states, at 5:47, the PSP trooper who had been told about the suspicious person around 5:44 p.m. then called two undercover PSP troopers stationed at the Sheets gas station and gave them a description of the suspicious person and told them to go to the AGR building to look for him. Security footage from the Sheets gas station shows these undercover officers looking towards the AGR buildings at 5:49, and at 5:51 they begin to walk over, leaving their cars behind. The task force final report states, there were also two undercover PSP officers walking around the AGR complex and property prior to Crooks' ascension to the roof, although this fact was unknown to the snipers in AGR. The undercover officers had been dispatched by another PSP trooper, but they were only given a brief description of Crooks and did not receive a photograph of him in time to assist in their search, which would have made it challenging for them to locate Crooks. Around 5:50, the PI response agent called the Secret Service counter-sniper team leader on the southern barn behind the stage, who had been texted about the rangefinder 5 minutes prior.
I contacted him, asked if his teams had seen this person, if they were aware, number one, of a person on the fence line with a rangefinder. He stated they were. I asked if they had seen him or knew where he was. They didn't know where he was at that time. I then told him, if you find this person, if he becomes visible, call me, and we'll go interview him.
He said,
I think it was either while I was typing out the email to send to my guys with the same information or right after. I want to say it was while I was typing the email because I remember I was staring at my phone and the phone's ringing, so I answered it. And they identified themselves as the PI agent and I could see them on the golf cart.
He emailed the other three Secret Service snipers at 5:52, writing,
from local police near the AGR glass building. If spotted, please notify PI or go direct with security room.
He added Nichols' original message and pictures he got from Wagner. The PI response agent said,
I had concluded my phone call with a counter-sniper advance agent. There was no visible person. No one knew where this person was. So we determined that we were going to go ahead and go back over to the other side of the stage and resume crowd control, unless we'd gotten word that this person had been located. As we were driving back to the stage left area through the parking lot, my trooper counterpart asked me to stop the cart and told me his vehicle was there in the parking lot. He offered to get in his vehicle and drive that fence line to look for this person. I agreed. I thought that was the best use of manpower at that time for us to split up.
Her counterpart said,
so the Secret Service officer was with me. She knew that I was sending my two undercovers over. I was also going to go over. I had her and Corporal drove me to my undercover truck, which was parked in the farm show grounds.
The task force said to her,
and you made a decision not to go with him.
I did.
Could you have got in the vehicle and rode with him?
I could have. At that time, based on the information we had, I felt we were better served to split up. If he saw the person, if he encountered them, he could detain them and I could respond to his area. The crowd that we had breaking through the bike rack, who would have had direct access to the motorcade at that time, I felt was the bigger threat. At the time that I split from my trooper counterpart, I did not feel there was any more I could do to locate and assist with this person. He would continue looking. I would go back over to this area and keep an eye on the crowd.
The Senate final report states, while the PI response agent asserted that her PSP counterpart was still searching for the suspicious individual, in the PSP counterpart's PSP and FBI interview, he stated that as he was leaving the outer perimeter, he was stopped by the Secret Service and told that if he exits, he would not be allowed back into the event. This interaction prompted the PSP counterpart to return to the command post. When the PI response agent was asked if she knew about this, she said no.
When you decided to go back to crowd control, why did you not inform anyone that you stopped your search?
I never stopped searching. I had no additional information on where to look or how to encounter this person. The counter snipers on top of the buildings had a better vantage point of that area than I did. I was not in a position to leave the venue and to conduct a search for this person at that time.
Wasn't that your job? In other words, wasn't it on you to go find that person?
Not necessarily, no. My primary responsibility is the site itself and the crowd in the site. I did not feel comfortable leaving the venue to wander this area looking for someone. At that time, based on the information I knew, it was not urgent. I was concerned. There was never any mention of a weapon or any direct threat. The only concerning information was the rangefinder at that time.
Back in the security room, after receiving the photos of Crooks from Lens around 5:49, PSP Sergeant Olea describes the photo to the security room supervisor. Olea also texts the photo to the CUAS operator, Eduardo Castro, who was also in the security room with him. Castro was in charge of the drone detection equipment that wasn't working while Crooks flew his drone earlier. He said,
I do not have a role in this, I'm just counter UAS. But I asked the PSP sergeant to send me the picture. And then I asked the security room agent if we would send out that we can use the counter sniper response to locate this individual. He agreed. So I offered to the security room agent to send out the CS response to the building, or to find the individual. Let me back up. The PSP guy mentioned that he was in the vicinity of the Sheetz, a Sheetz gas station. That was a ways away from our site. So I sent that picture to the CS response, and then after sending him that picture, I called him on the phone, told him to try to make contact with this individual. And he went out and he responded.
The DHS report says Castro called the counter sniper response agent at 5:52, describing Crooks as a suspicious person with a rangefinder.
I told him that this was a suspicious individual, and that was spotted by local snipers, and we wanted him to detain him and interview him, potentially.
And at that point, did you have any indication where those local snipers were located?
In the AGR, what I know now to be the AGR building. I just want to point out that they mentioned that he was in the vicinity of the Sheetz gas station. That's where I asked the CS response agent to go to. There was no communication of the AGR building at that time.
The security room supervisor said Olaya said the opposite, mentioning AGR but not Sheetz. Sheetz and the AGR building are about 400 yards apart. We don't know exactly what Len said in his phone call with Olaya, or what Olaya verbally passed on to others in the security room. Olaya did not make himself available to the task force for an interview. We only have a few statements from another interview he did. But it almost doesn't matter if the CS response was sent to Sheetz instead of AGR, because just like the PI response agent, he never left the inner perimeter to go looking.
Do you recall if you specifically said that Crooks was outside of the perimeter or inside the perimeter, or that phrase wasn't used at all?
That phrase was not used, but I did say it was the vicinity of the Sheetz gas station, which is what the PSP sergeant had said. So it was clearly out of the perimeter because, to look, it was a ways away.
Did the CS response agent seem to understand that this was a potential issue outside of the venue versus being, like, at the venue?
Absolutely, yeah. He definitely understood that. He said it's going to take me like 15 minutes to get there. I was like, well, get there quickly. So, yeah, he understood it was outside.
The CS response agent's account is different. He said he was under the impression Crooks was in the inner perimeter, and that's where the CS response agent stayed.
He said that he was last seen at the front of the event, which, in my mind, was near Evans Street but still within the perimeter. So again, I'm still thinking he's inside. I should have clarified in hindsight.
In your counterpart's testimony here, it appears that he's saying that you told him that Mr. Crooks tried to come through the gate with a rangefinder. Did you say that to your counterpart?
That was my understanding at the time, yes.
He apparently told his PSP counterpart that Crooks was turned away from the magnetometers, meaning he was still in the outer perimeter.
So, did you ever plan to leave the security perimeter to find the suspicious person?
I did not plan to, no.
Why not?
I can't answer that question.
But at that time, you didn't know if he was inside the perimeter or outside the perimeter, correct?
It was my understanding that he was within our perimeter, yes. At least the middle or inner perimeter is where I thought he was.
So who was searching for him outside the security perimeter?
I can't answer that. I still didn't have enough information, in my mind. So I called Castro and I wanted to know who specifically gave him that information so I could cut out this middleman back and forth. And I called the individual that he was talking to directly to ask him more about this photo.
The DHS report states that the CS response agent called Castro back at 5:53. A minute later, PSP Sergeant Olaya called Lenz to pass on the CS response agent's request to be connected to the local counter-sniper team, and Lenz provided the ESU Sniper Team Leader Wagner's phone number.
1001, command.
Good.
Secret Service will be calling you. If you have yourself.
Number.
The task force final report states that the CS response agent called Wagner at 5:57 to obtain additional details regarding Crooks' location. The CS response agent said,
He just explained kind of the same, that he was up in that area.
When you say up in that area, did you take that to mean still within the perimeter?
Yes.
And still, but like, the front area?
He said at this point, at last he saw him was more towards, like, the 3 o'clock side. So I took that to be either the inner perimeter or the middle perimeter. And that's why I started heading out around the 3 o'clock.
So all that local officer told you was a description of Crooks?
A description of Crooks and where he was last seen as far as he was at the front of the event, on the right-hand side.
So he was outside the perimeter?
If that's your interpretation of it. My interpretation was that he was within the perimeter. I'm saying he was at the front of the event, which is within the perimeter.
The task force final report states that the CS response agent encountered the PI response agent at 5:59.
My state trooper counterpart and I got in the golf cart and we started to head up the road towards the command post to just try and circle the perimeter of the inner and middle perimeter. When we got halfway up that road, we encountered the PI response agent. She said that her state trooper counterpart was already over on the opposite side, so at 3 o'clock, that middle perimeter field was with a couple other local law enforcement and a truck looking for the individual. She's a senior agent. She said, "Hey, we got up here, we're looking in this area. You and him can go back down toward that area and start searching that area." So we turned around, headed back towards the staging area.
The CS response agent's PSP counterpart said,
"We end up meeting with another Secret Service agent. I believe she was from Intel, and she said that her and there were other units already looking for him, and then we can go back to our posts. We went back to where we were by the bleachers."
The PI response agent said,
And then I encountered the CS response agent. He was also aware that there was a person with a rangefinder on the fence line, and then he received a picture. He shared the picture with me. I then texted that picture to my PSP trooper counterpart so he was aware of who he was looking for.
After your exchange of information with the CS response agent, did you in any way advise him to return to his post or position, or to turn around, or give any type of instruction about where his next movement should be, with that information about the suspicious person with the rangefinder?
I don't recall giving him any instruction, no.
The CS response agent told us that at some point, he was told to go back to the Deus stage area and stop looking. Do you know who would have told him that?
I don't know. I know he was in the Deus area with me, helping with crowd control.
Her PSP counterpart soon returned without finding Crooks.
So, first of all, when your counterpart returns, what's your impression or what is your general sense of who was then looking for Mr. Crooks?
I was under the impression that local law enforcement and/or the counter snipers were keeping an eye out for this person.
The CS response agent said,
"My focus at this point was to try and get in position for when Trump was coming on the stage. Just to be readily available for the CS team in case they saw something while he was coming up on the stage, I could respond accordingly."
When someone continues to be brought up on radio or cell phones or texts, did you feel that urgency that we need to prioritize and find this person?
I did. The closer it got to Mr. Trump getting up on the stage, again though, we had no description that he was armed or that he was a threat. So in this situation, a suspicious individual that was last seen at the back of the rally was definitely a concern. Yes, I agree. However, individuals having a conflict right next to the stage, that took priority at that moment. But immediately once that was resolved, we went back to our search.
So why didn't you go over to the 2 or 3 o'clock area, if that was where he was reported to be?
We already had people there.
So was it coordinated in terms of you were told to search a certain area, and other people were told to search another area?
It was coordinated between myself and PI, as I mentioned.
Did you have any concerns about not being able to identify the suspicious person with the rangefinder, having been working on this for 10 minutes from when you received that first message from Castro?
It wasn't highly concerning. Like I said, we do get suspicious individuals every event. If it was to the point of being a severe concern, I was expecting something from the counter-sniper team to reach out to me and be like, "Hey, that individual is a legit concern." So it wasn't highest on the priority as far as securing my post, I guess you could say.
This is Comperatore, 10 minutes before he was shot and killed. The task force final report states, by 5:52 p.m, almost 20 minutes before the first shots were fired, at least 9 Secret Service personnel were aware of a suspicious person near the AGR complex who had been previously seen with the rangefinder. These have all been mentioned. The post stander paired with Blasco for the motorcade entrance, the 4 snipers on the barns behind the stage, the security room supervisor and Castro in the security room, the PI response agent and the CS response agent. At 5:54, 12 minutes after the first radio transmission about Crooks, Lenz relays it over the Police Ops 3 channel for the first time.
Hey, just situational awareness. White male, gray t-shirt, light khaki shorts, glasses, and long hair. Was near the AGR building on foot with what believed to be a rangefinder headed towards the stage. Our CR units lost a visual of him. I believe you guys are outside of that fence if you come upon him.
Yeah, there's a PSP unit by the water tower, and I sent 1342 over there. He didn't see him.
We end up telling Butler Township Police. They leave their traffic post to come over and try to look and find him.
Butler ESU Deputy Commander Crawford was asked,
Earlier you said that, at 5:45, there was no need to say that BTPD was en route because Blasco had already initiated that. So why at 5:54 is command notifying BTPD?
That might have just been a duplicate, just to memorialize it as a comment.
Around 5:58, Blasco called Sergeant Sass.
I called Sergeant Sass, let him know, asked him to go help, because he was stationed at Meridian and Whitestown Road, which is just adjacent to the AGR building.
When asked about the gap between initially getting notified about Crooks, he said,
because at that point in time, my understanding was, hey, we have a whole bunch of people. Secret Service has people over there. So they're looking for him. Our job was traffic control. It finally got to a point where, hey, we're still looking for him and we can't find him 10, 15 minutes later. So now maybe we need some additional eyes over there of, hey, help us locate this guy.
At 5:59, Crawford texted Priolo, who was in the Beaver group chat with Nickel.
Info out to Uniform Patrol and Secret Service. Did you have any direction of travel?
Checking now.
Priolo then texted Nickel.
They're asking for a direction of travel.
Not sure. He was up against the building. If I had to guess, towards the back, away from the event.
Nickel's reply was relayed back to Crawford.
So now we're at 6. You reported this in. At this point, have you seen any kind of law enforcement on foot outside the building looking for this guy?
No.
He was waiting, frustrated. Where was the response that's going to take care of this?
Around the time Trump took the stage, Crooks made his final moves. Nickel said,
As I was moving around the building that I was in, I seen Crooks. So I was in the back corner of that. It would have been in that top window, the same one I took the picture of the bike from. And when I looked out, I noticed that Crooks was standing out beside that picnic table, and there was a backpack sitting on the ground. He grabbed that backpack, and then he took off running, north, away from the building I was in.
What prompts him, in your mind, to then run and circle around that building?
I have no idea. Just like it's time to go. I don't know. Once he got in between the buildings there, I had no sight of him. And at that point, I had then radioed into communication command.
Mirko said,
Nickel yells across the second floor to me that now Crooks is at a picnic table with a backpack. So I immediately run to Nickel's location. Nickel tells me Crooks took off not in a run but at essentially a brisk walk north. He then disappeared in between these two portions of the AGR building. We did not know that was all interconnected. There was music playing loudly.
From that time until Mr. Trump took the stage, about how long was that? Short time frame, long time frame?
Short time frame.
Nickel radioed Lenz just as Trump took the stage, incorrectly reporting that Crooks was heading through the buildings towards Sheets.
The next president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump.
4 Sierra 2, man.
4 Sierra 2, good.
Alright, subject's in between the AGR buildings. He's got a backpack now. He just went towards Sheets.
Copy. Has a backpack down between the buildings that is towards Sheets.
Blasco, who was monitoring all local channels, relayed this over the Police Ops 3 channel.
1305, 1305, 1306, and 1345. Good. Eyes between AGR building heading towards Sheep. Has a backpack. Okay. We have 2 officers. They want them detained, correct? Yes. 1306 copies. I'm on foot over here by the entrance.
The Senate interim report states that at approximately 6:03 to 6:04, Lenz called Alea again and relayed Nickel's transmission. Alea then passed it on to the PSP trooper at post 5. There's no mention in any of the available reports or interviews about Alea passing this on to the security room supervisor, who was asked,
Do you recall that information being relayed to you?
I did not receive that particular information.
The Senate interim report states that at 6:04, the PSP trooper who directed the 2 undercover troopers to look for Crooks earlier sent them a photo of him. They had arrived to the south of AGR and can be seen in a video shown 30 seconds ago. Nickel said,
So when he took off running, I made my way downstairs to the first floor. I didn't know this building was connected here. I thought the buildings were open. So my thought was if I go back to this door, I could watch him running around the building. If I had known the building was connected and he just ran around there and didn't go nowhere, I probably would have stayed on the second floor.
It seems like you would have potentially had time to do a site survey of where you are being posted.
Well, we were told they wanted us in place by 10:30, I think it was.
What was your job at that point, since the event wasn't going to start until much later in the afternoon?
Just observation.
Had anybody started entering the area?
No. I don't believe the doors opened until 1. So when I got down to the first floor, I opened the door. And when I looked out, I noticed that 2 patrol units had pulled into the parking lot. There was a marked patrol unit, and then there was an unmarked patrol unit. The officer in the marked car had got out and started walking towards me. I said, he ran around the building down there. And he looks at me and he's like, it's all one building. I said, well, then he's on the other side because he went in between the buildings over there. He then walked around past me and then went around the front of the building. And then the individual in the unmarked car, I said, he's on the other side. So he then pulled out of the lot and went around.
The officer who drove out to the other side was Tedeschi, who first pulled in after hearing Blasco's 6:03 transmission while driving around.
45 of them in the area on foot back here. Do we have any update?
Not yet.
From the task force final report and the Senate interim report, footage obtained from a local business also shows Crooks climbed to the roof via air conditioning units in an alcove of the building in the AGR complex at approximately 6:05 p.m. He then moved southward across the connected AGR building's roofs with the backpack. Video from a local business, PSP dash camera footage, and police body camera footage show Crooks' movement across multiple AGR complex roofs between 6:05 and 6:08 p.m.
Millions of people are pouring in from
1303 from 1340.
mental institutions. We're going to stop it. We're going to get it stopped. We're going to bring them back. As he said, we're going to bring them back.
1303.
We're going to deport.
Can you keep eyes for that person? South on Meridian Road, I'm going into the woods behind the cruiser.
Between my intersection to southwest, say, there's a tree line, so I started searching that area.
And we're going to take back the White House, and we're going to take back our country. We're going to take it back. Our country's been...
Velasco said he left his post at 6:06 and started driving towards AGR.
I'm guessing the west side. East side looks clear.
Done over 4 years and hiding what the obvious facts are.
It was 6:05. I'm walking up towards the west side.
You run for the President of the United States from a basement, All very dishonest stuff, but you know, we're going to have the greatest election. I tell you what, we did fantastically in 2016. We did much better in 2020. You know, we did much better. And it was rigged. It was a rigged deal, but we did much better. But it's nothing compared to the enthusiasm all over, not just in Pennsylvania, all over. There's nothing compared to the enthusiasm that we've seen over the last...
They should have a fairly good perimeter. If you get another visual, let me know.
West side,
The PI response agent was informed of Nichols' update by the Intel advance agent at 6:07.
Why didn't you go toward the sheets at that time?
I didn't know where it was. Well outside the venue, I later found out. The assumption among those of us that had been looking was that this person was probably leaving the area.
The Republican Party will hold...
BTPD Detective Collins started driving towards the AGR building from the east after hearing the radio chatter.
The Republican nomination for president of the United States.
Patrolman Cuss was walking up on the other side of the trees when he saw Crooks on the roof, while Hercules 1 snipers faced the other direction. Hercules 2 faced the roof, but had a tree blocking part of it.
You know, your current senator, I never met him. I don't think I've ever met him. I was only there 4 years, but I don't think I
I'm around the south side.
I'll tell you, that's your senator. He votes with Biden or whoever happens to...
Someone's on the roof.
Tedeschi said,
When I was on the other side of the building, Patrolman Cuss, I can hear him saying somebody was on the roof. After he said somebody was on the roof, I turned around and started back towards where his location was.
I have someone on the roof with white shorts.
He's a valiant fighter. He's a great, great gentleman. So we're going to bring him up for... Can we bring him up for a couple of minutes later? A little bit later. All right. You get ready, McCormick. You get ready. I'll get you up here.
He's south side. Coming around the bend right now.
Party that is
Towards
bigger,
the stage.
stronger, more confident, and more united than ever before. And that's what we are. We're the most united party now. You know,
Captain and copy as well. We do not have assets on the roof. That is not us.
The Senate interim report states, Butler ESU Commander Lenz called PSP Sergeant Olea to notify him that the suspicious person they had been looking for was on the AGR roof. Lenz did not relay the roof information to the snipers nearby in the building, even though he had been communicating with Nickel back and forth since the first transmission of the rangefinder until a minute before learning someone was on the roof. The task force final report mentions this 3 times. It does not appear that any related communications were transmitted over the ESU radio channel, which would have reached ESU personnel located inside the AGR complex. When BTPD reported that Crooks was on the roof, Commander Lenz updated PSP, who in turn informed the Secret Service in the security room, but did not update the ESU channel that included the snipers inside AGR, who could have looked out the window to see Crooks. Commander Lenz in the local command post did not inform the tactical units inside the AGR building, who may have been able to confront Crooks directly if they had known his location. The previous 2 sentences are partially attributed in the footnotes to 11 pages of Lenz's interview with the task force where this was discussed. But as mentioned earlier, this is the only one of the 46 task force interviews that has been withheld from the public, so we don't know what Lenz had to say about this lack of communication. We can look at the interview with his Deputy Commander Crawford, who was also in the mobile command trailer. He was asked about the lack of communications on the ESU channel.
So we don't see any radio transmissions in that 3-minute block from when law enforcement first learns that Crooks is on the roof until the shooting happens. Did anybody attempt to contact Ops 4 to tell them that there was someone on the roof?
Not that I recall.
While the answer to the following question is yes, Crawford doesn't exactly say so.
Would it have been helpful for the snipers in AGR to know that he was on the roof?
Would it have been helpful? They were actively looking for that individual. And, once again, once he was on the roof, until that gun came out and he was a threat, he still wouldn't have been a shoot threat target at that point. I can't go back and replay that and give you an honest answer with that.
Nickel was asked,
if someone had alerted you, and someone says, there's someone on the roof, at that point you have the ability to put your head and rifle out the roof and look for someone, is that right?
I could have found a way, yeah.
So in the minutes prior to the shooting, had someone radioed in over Ops 4, there's someone on the roof, you would have had the ability to find a window suitable enough to get a viewpoint over the roof?
I don't know if I would have because I was down on the floor. Had I been there, yeah, I would have found a way to get out on the roof.
Lenz was informed about someone on the roof 3 minutes before the shooting, and Nichols said it only took him 1 minute to get down to the front door, so he would have had time to go back up to the windows if notified over the ESU channel. Mirko, who was also listening to the same channel, was already up there. He did eventually see Crooks on the roof from a second floor window, but he said it was just after the shooting began. 2 or 3 minutes notice could have made all the difference.
Someone's on the roof.
What's up, man?
I have someone on the roof with white shorts.
The great gentleman.
See that dude running?
Can we bring him up for a couple of minutes?
We both just instantly, at high speed, go towards AGR.
The video on the left was filmed by James Copenhagen. He finished recording, unaware he just filmed the person that was about to wound him. Having missed Crooks running, Hercules 1 was about to see a commotion in that direction.
As I was approaching the AGR building, I could still see the male running, and there was a pretty large tree that covers above the roof, and that's where I lost sight of him. I immediately went to the south end because I thought maybe he was trying to get into the event, or he would jump down there.
I'm on the southwest
There's
corner. I
never
don't
been
see
anything
anybody
like
yet.
it. They've never seen a movement like this. Make America great
Because
again.
we don't have him in custody yet, but he's right in front of me by the pine tree standing upwards. He has a backpack.
America great again, Joe. It means make America great again. That's
Someone get over by the Whitetown Road. That's where you gain entrance, up on the roof.
Look, they're all pointing.
I'm over here. You still up there?
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look.
Trying to follow him around.
There he is right there. Right there, see him?
Something going on in this
He's laying
building.
down, see him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
What's happening?
Oh my god. There's somebody in this building.
Yeah, look. There he is.
Last time I seen him by the pine tree between the two buildings was the small walkway in the buildings.
We have criminals. We have people that
He's right here. I don't see him.
It's much tougher than it happens.
You ain't flat on the roof, big guy.
Once I arrived and he wasn't there, I then backtracked to the other units. So I see Patrolman Tedeschi standing there, and I tell him, I say, we need to get up on the roof and get this guy.
State police and ET units have AGR surrounded that are looking for him.
Receive.
That's when he pointed his firearm in my face. I don't know if I reach for my gun, if I slip. The next thing I know is, I'm smack against the ground and fall.
PSP should be coming to help as well.
He's on! I saw him, he's laying down! He's got a long gun.
In response to this, Lenz called to deploy units that were behind the stage over to AGR.
How long did you RF from command?
Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old.
Sure, for command, you need to deploy to the AGR building. BT has a male on the roof with a long gun. They have made contact with him. That's fine.
Zalaponi returned fire after Crooks fired 8 shots. Then, almost 16 seconds after the shooting began, David King shot and killed Crooks.
About 30 seconds before shots were fired is the first radio transmission I got that said, hey, this guy's armed, he has a gun.
So my actions for that, at that point, the gentleman on the roof clearly is a threat, and I radioed to our
quick reaction force to deploy them to the AGR complex to begin to address that threat. Prior to me finishing that radio transmission, you can hear the shots being fired through my open microphone.
Referring to Detective Collins, the task force final report states, "To date, the task force has not received any evidence to suggest that message reached the former president's Secret Service detail prior to shots fired." A Hercules 2 sniper on the north barn closest to AGR said,
"I saw 2 white vehicles pull into the AGR parking lot, but they were obscured by that tree line that I previously mentioned. And from those 2 vehicles, I saw one individual emerge from the tree line, identified him as a police officer, and I couldn't tell why he was moving urgently, but I went over the radio with the following transmission. Security room from Hercules. Locals are working something at the 3 o'clock, approximately 200 yards out. The security room repeated my message back to me, saying that they had copied."
PSP Sergeant Olea in the security room, who was told by Lenz about someone on the roof around 6:09, said he passed the message on, although the security room supervisor denies hearing it.
Were you ever made aware of this suspicious person being on the roof of the AGR building prior to the shooting?
No. Well, just moments before it, at 6:09, I received another call from Commander Lenz saying that the guy was discovered on top of a roof, and they had officers below him, meaning municipals, not troops, that they couldn't, figure out how he got up there to access. At 6:10, I related this to the Secret Service that, hey, the guy is back and everything. And at 6:10, I called a PSP corporal.
Prior to calling the PSP corporal, you gave that information to the Secret Service about him being on the rooftop?
Yes.
And who was that you communicated that to?
It would be Burr. It was like we're in the room and I'm moving fast.
He could hear all your communications?
Yes, cause I'm trying to get, it's hey, basically almost hey, he's on the roof, and then I need to get our people there because obviously, they're the ones that can get there fastest.
While Olea was getting the information out to his PSP people, he may not have made sure that Burr had heard him. The Senate final report states that Olea didn't notice if Burr did anything with the information. Burr said he didn't hear him.
"I never heard man on a roof."
Sergeant Olayer said he told the Secret Service there was a man on the roof at 6:10. He was asked who he told. He said something to the effect of, "It would be Burr." Agent Castro says that he was told by Sergeant Olayer that there was a man on the roof.
I mean, it sounds like that's also when, approximately at that exact same time, we're getting across the radio, the local police are working a problem at 3 o'clock. That's what I'm hearing. So Castro is not necessarily listening to those radios. So maybe he does hear Olayer say that. What I recall is that the local police were working a problem at 3 o'clock. And when I heard that on the radio, that's what I put back out over the Secret Service radio. I parroted it back out to make sure everybody heard it. If I had heard that there was a man on the roof, I would have put that out on the radio instead of the local police are working a problem at 3 o'clock.
Castro said,
"The PSP sergeant mentions that there's an individual on the roof, and then I called the CS response agent and was able to tell he's on a roof. The PSP sergeant later, I think he gave an update seconds after that it was the AGR roof."
Castro says he thought that was further away than it was.
So when they said that he was on the roof, the last place we have received information about was that he was in the vicinity of the Sheetz gas station. I was still looking for a building that said AGR in the vicinity of the Sheetz gas station. It was not my duty to notify the shift that there was a shooter on a roof. However, had I known there was a person, suspicious individual adjacent to the stage where the local tactical or local sniper team was, I absolutely would have notified them.
Do you recall if Special Agent in Charge Burr also heard this?
I believe he heard it, and I believe he put it out, yeah.
What makes you believe that he heard it?
That he was in closer proximity than I was.
Is it right that you don't recall seeing him hear it or react to it? It's more that you think he probably did because of how close he was?
Yeah. I think they were speaking to each other, facing each other. It's an assumption that he heard it. But they were speaking like we are speaking now. He's looking at you, I'm looking at him. So...
The task force final report states, although there is some dispute about which of the Secret Service special agents heard the information in the security room, no Secret Service special agents notified the Trump Detail Shift, Secret Service counter snipers, or anyone other than the CS response agent who was too far away to respond to the AGR complex in a timely manner. The Senate interim report states, based on the estimated likely route Crooks took across the roofs of the AGR building starting at 6:05 on July 13, the Secret Service counter-snipers in the Hercules 1 position could have had a direct line of sight to him for at least part of his movements across the roofs. When shown the photograph above of these 3 roof peaks during the committee's interview, the Secret Service counter-sniper team leader who was in the Hercules 1 position, i.e. on the roof of the red barn on the right in the photograph above, acknowledged that with the view he had of the AGR building, if someone was standing on those 3 roofs or walking across them, he could have been able to see them.
From our position, you should have line of sight, yes.
The other Hercules 1 sniper on the same barn spoke about the original rangefinder message, Crooks running on the roof, and the radio call about something at the 3 o'clock.
So when I received the email with the photos, I looked to the 3 o'clock AGR building, tried to look on the ground to see if I can see anybody that matches this description. And then when I did not see him or anybody that matched him. Then I went back to my area of responsibility, continuing my observation.
As covered in the previous video in this series, Hercules 1 focused to the south, while Hercules 2 focused to the north where AGR was, even though they couldn't see the roof as much as Hercules 1.
Did you ever see him on the roof moving into position?
No.
If someone had been running across those roofs, would you have expected to be able to see them?
If I was looking that direction, probably.
Do you recall hearing Secret Service counter-sniper say over the radio that locals were addressing an issue at the 3 o'clock, about 200 yards out?
I do.
What, if anything, did you do with that information?
Basically turned back around to observe the 3 o'clock position. I did see locals around the building with their weapons out.
Did you notify the security room or anyone else via radio at that point that you were observing this situation with the locals?
No, I did not. I was trying to continue focusing on the building. I'm not the only one that's observing that area. Someone else could have also put out the radio call. I'm not just going to go ahead and, just put it on, just myself. There were other individuals.
Did you have a direct means of communicating with Trump's detail, who had the ability to keep or remove Trump from the stage?
Yes, through our radios.
Was it understood that you, between yourself and John Marciniak, you were the person on the gun, and he was the person doing the communications job?
Correct.
His barn partner was asked about the same things.
So you received the message at 5:45. You sent the message to all 3 of your team members at 5:52, is when they get it. And at that point, all 4 of you kind of turn and make AGR mainly what your focus is, correct?
Generally, yeah. But I didn't want to just drop coverage of any of the other threat areas that I had already outlined because that I felt was irresponsible.
Mr. Crooks was able to get on top of the AGR roof at approximately 6:05, and to get to where he would have had to go across majority of the AGR roof. At no point did any of your team members see them if all 4 of you were focused on the AGR complex.
I didn't see him, and King or the other 2, they didn't tell me that they saw anything and put anything out over the radio.
This is a snapshot from a video taken by James Copenhaver at approximately 6:08 p.m. Mr. Copenhaver was one of the victims at the rally that day, who sustained gunshot wounds. So my question regarding this exhibit is, at 6:08 p.m., were you facing the direction of the AGR building?
I'm not sure what time we faced. It was after the counter-sniper put over the radio call that action was happening over there that we turned.
But was Hercules 2 facing the AGR building at 6:08 p.m.?
They should have been facing that area.
Could they see the roof line that the shooter used to traverse to get to where his location was?
They probably could not see that from their vantage point.
So for the Secret Service teams, only Hercules 1, yourself and David King, would have had a line of sight to be able to see that roof line and where he ultimately was located.
For Secret Service, yes, not including the local teams.
As you turned to face AGR, did you have any concern or thoughts that Hercules 2, the one that had been primarily focused on the AGR area, had an obstruction in their sights?
I knew they had an obstruction, and I actually favored to the right side of the building, where the obstruction was. A Hercules 2 counter-sniper put over the radio that the police were working some sort of situation at the 3 o'clock off the stage, the direction of the AGR building. King and myself, once upon hearing that, we basically repositioned ourselves and turned toward the AGR roof. And when we looked, just plain eyes, no optics or anything, you could see police running towards the building with their hands on their pistols. I think one actually had a pistol facing towards the ground out of a holster. That's a pretty big deal for us, so immediately we turned and faced our guns towards the threat area.
So why not, in that moment, send a signal or a radio call saying, do not let the protectee on the stage, or if the protectee was already on the stage, take him off?
I didn't have enough to go over the radio with the same exact communication of, the police are working a situation at the 3 o'clock. We know they're working. What are they working on? We don't know. We're trying not to clog the radio.
You mentioned you saw someone with their gun drawn. It seems like a major elevation of a threat level, correct?
That's why we placed our rifles in the tripods and started searching through the rifle scopes themselves.
But beyond that, is that not enough to say we have something imminent happening here, if their guns are drawn and we need to ensure the safety of the protectee?
Potentially. It definitely is elevated. We're trying to figure out what's happening. It's happening very quickly.
I understand the idea that you don't want to put things over the radio that are redundant if they've just heard it. There seems to be a difference between locals working an issue at 3 o'clock and locals with guns drawn.
Yes.
So what was your thought process at that point that you saw a pertinent piece of information that had not been put over the radio?
Honestly, in the moment, I'm trying to make sense of what's happening, and I'm trying to get set up to potentially take a shot that's necessary. But looking back, yes, clearly over the radio, hey, police have guns drawn, this is going up another level. We're now from yellow to red, something's going on, but I didn't at the time.
Is there a way to do both of those things at once? Or are you choosing, get on my gun or put it over the radio?
So King had the headset, so he could potentially get on his gun, and there is just a button on your chest, so he could have easily have done it. Me, I would have physically had to just push the button down here to screen into the mic. Yes, it sounds simple to do, but it is multitasking. In a perfect world, yes, not a problem. But in the high-stress environment, I didn't even think to put it over the radio.
Do you think that could have bought more time to potentially mitigate the threat, pull the protectee off the stage, take additional action?
Potentially. I guess you could've, should've, would've, maybe this will happen, maybe that won't, all day. Maybe an airplane will land in the field and we'll have to deal with that. My main mission that day, as soon as they told me who we were looking for, get on the optics, try to find them. Communications is important, but doing the actual counter-sniper job is our main priority.
The detail's second supervisor said he would have gone on stage if this was put over the radio.
If somebody said, though, officers have their weapons drawn, and I had just heard that they're working something at the 3 o'clock, I'm going to go on the stage.
The DHS report states, at 6:10, the special agent in charge of the Trump detail, located near the stage, physically directs the detail site agent, also nearby, to investigate what the issue at the 3 o'clock is. The site counterpart said,
I received one phone call, and that was at 6:11 from Agent Perez, and she called me, and at the time that she called me, I was in the security room getting a drink, and she said, what's going on at the 3 o'clock? And I put down the phone, turned to the agent who was in charge of the security room, and I said, what's going on at the 3 o'clock? And moments later, shots were fired.
Going back and continuing from when Nickel went downstairs and spoke to police in the AGR parking lot, he said,
So at that point, I went back into the building, and I stayed on the first floor. So I made my way over to the side of the building where I had last seen him. And I'm now looking out the windows. I'm like looking around, and I started to work my way towards the event side of the building. When I got to this side of the building over here, I could hear the president talking at this point. I noticed people looking at the building. And I'm looking out the window at them, and like they're looking towards the building at me, and I'm like, what is going on here? So I moved down. Like I said, I'm moving down the building basically from window to window. They're all like staring at the building, and he would be behind them. Trump. So in my head, what I thought at this point is I'm like, those guys found him out there and they're dealing with him, and everybody is watching them deal with him. That's when I heard the gunfire, and people started to run.
His partner Mirko was asked,
Between when Sergeant Nickel left and when obviously you heard the shots, are you just continuing to look around in that general area of the windows at the end of the hall?
I am still diligently looking, trying to locate Crooks amongst the crowd that had gathered out here, but also keeping my eye on that package, waiting for what I was assuming was going to be uniformed officers showing up over there.
Did they ever come to that area prior to the shots?
So uniformed officers did not. It turned out that the two individuals I saw walk over to the backpack were undercover Pennsylvania State Police troopers. Moments later, suddenly a wave of people that would have been coming from the southwestern area started running, and I specifically remember hearing a woman scream. I immediately take off running back to the room where my rifle's at.
How long does it take you?
Probably about 7-8 seconds. As I'm coming into the room is when I hear the QRF launched.
Short for command, you need to deploy to the AGR building.
And as I grab my rifle, I hear the gunshots. As I'm grabbing my rifle and hearing the shots, I picked my rifle up, went 2 rooms down, and as I came into what appeared to be a small conference room, as I'm coming through the doorway I could see someone on the roof. I made my way around the conference table, brought my rifle up on target, and as I was coming up to the window is when the Secret Service fired. I saw Crooks drop, roll over, and the rifle fall out.
Is that window open at that point?
It is open, but there's a screen in it. I did rip the screen out of the window. I held crosshairs on him until our team got on the roof. Once I looked through my scope and determined that he was deceased, I did radio out over Ops 4 that the shooter was down.
Shooter is down. 10, Sierra 3, shooter is down.
Got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold up, your head is bloody.
So we gotta move to the closet.
Nichols said,
I heard on the radio, shooter on the roof of the AGR building, or something to that effect, because at that point I was like, shit, I'm in the AGR building. And then I made my way back to the door where I had stepped out and entered from. He had already been taken out at that point. I came out the door, and then I encountered a couple troopers, Pennsylvania State Police, that were in plain clothes. I went back into the building to the second floor. When I got up there, Mirko had told me, I'm in the first room. I'm in the first room. He was like, kind of leaning out the window covering down on Crooks, who was already neutralized at this point.
So he is in that window, all the way down on the eastern side with a pointed rifle out the window?
Yes.
Pretty close to where Crooks was in the relative scheme of things?
Yeah.
Certainly within a shot distance, that would be no problem?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If only Command had notified them about someone on the roof a few minutes earlier.
My name is Aaron Zalaponi. I'm the Alpha team leader on the Butler County ESU team. I was positioned right in between the suspect and former President Trump. I fired the 9th shot.
Zalaponi can be seen on Lieutenant Pearson's body cam.
He's got a long gun.
Pearson ran towards the fence line after hearing Collins mention the gun on the roof over the police radio. Zalaponi, and everyone listening to the ESU channel, heard Lenz relay the message just before shots were fired.
Short for command, you need to deploy to the AGR building. BT has a male on the roof with a long gun. They have made contact with him.
This is Zalaponi near the fence line, and this is Crooks on the roof.
After the first 3 shots, that's whenever I looked up. I saw the suspect on the rooftop. He began to fire the second volley, and that's whenever I shouldered my weapon, took aim, and engaged my target.
That last shot was Zalaponi's. Crooks didn't fire again. 10 seconds after Zalaponi's shot, King fired the kill shot from the Hercules 1 position.
I 100% hit the target. Because that way he slumped over, staggered, he was dazed and confused. I mean, that's how he went down.
When you hear a bullet fly over your head past your head, like you're ducking. He had no urgency. When I hit, like I said, there was that jerking motion. Then he slowly rolled like he just had no strength, off to his right side. It looked like he was trying to recover. He was struggling.
So he never left my sight 100%. Like I could just see about an inch or so of his head still above the roof line.
As he started to slowly come up, I was about to press a second round off, and that's when Secret Service actually took him out.
But Kevin Rojek from the FBI said,
all reviewable evidence collected from the AGR roof and from the subject's body are consistent with the round fired by the Secret Service sniper.
The task force final report states, to date, the bullet fired by CAT team leader Zalaponi at Crooks has not been recovered, and no recovered bullet fragments have been confirmed as attributable to his shot. The autopsy report concludes that Crooks died as a result of a single gunshot wound to the head. The rear part of the stock on Crooks's rifle was damaged. A presumptive chemical test for lead performed on the impact area returned a positive result for lead. Although the FBI did not determine the origin of that lead, the PSP concluded in their officer-involved shooting report that the buttstock of the rifle had a section of the plastic dislodged and missing from along the cheek piece, which was later determined to be a result of the Secret Service counter-sniper's projectile impact after travelling through Crooks's head. The autopsy report states that a single bullet hit Crooks, exited his neck and re-entered his back. Distant range entrance wound of the left upper lip, downward, backward and rightward bullet track. Exit wound of the right lateral neck, with adjacent pattern abrasion consistent with rifle buttstock abrasion. There is a corresponding gunshot re-entrance wound on the right upper back. There are 2 corresponding partial gunshot re-exit wounds on the lateral right upper back. Destructive wound track, consistent with damage caused by a high-velocity bullet. Small copper-coloured metal bullet jacket fragment recovered for evidence from the right upper back. An additional report by Task Force member Clay Higgins states, the FBI asserted to the task force that only 2 bullet fragments associated with Crooks's death were received and examined at the FBI laboratory. 1 recovered from Crooks's right upper back and 1 in proximity to Crooks from the roof of an AGR building. The FBI stated that the fragment recovered from Crooks bears no marks of evidentiary value for comparison purposes, and as such, no comparison can be made to the rifles used by the Secret Service and local law enforcement. The fragment recovered on the AGR roof in proximity to Crooks, which tested positively for Crooks's DNA, was found by FBI analysis to be consistent with the class and general rifling characteristics of the Secret Service rifle used on July 13. This fragment was eliminated as having been fired by the rifle used by local law enforcement based on class characteristics. With the FBI's approval, and without informing Congress, Crooks's body was released to a funeral home on July 22 and cremated. This eliminated the possibility of conducting further testing or collecting evidence that remained. There were multiple small bullet fragments in Crooks's person that were not collected. These are visible in the post-mortem X-ray images and described in the autopsy report. X-rays additionally show multiple small, retained bullet fragments in the mid and right inferior aspects of the head, posterolateral right neck, and right shoulder, upper back. Despite FBI and PSP personnel being present at the autopsy, there was supposedly no deliberation about whether or not to collect the remaining fragments, which were deemed too small to justify recovery.
You stated that there was only one bullet wound. I accept that you had only one observable bullet wound. Are you there, doctor?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. Could the injuries on Crooks' shoulders have been caused by a combined impact of Butler County ESU shot number 9 striking somewhere in the vicinity of the buttstock of Crooks' rifle and some fragmenting from that impact? Could the injuries on Crooks' shoulders have been caused by a combination of shot number 9 and shot number 10? Is that possible?
No, I don't believe so.
You don't believe it's possible. Does that mean it's possible?
No, it's not possible.
It's not possible. So I respect your testimony, but how would you determine if you removed only one fragment of a bullet? So you don't know where shot number 9 went, did you, doctor?
Correct.
Okay. So is it not possible? You're saying it's not possible that shot number 9 went all the way through Crooks, and you had no way of knowing that because it was in the same wound that was further affected by shot number 10. You're saying that's not possible?
The body, there was no evidence on the body of that occurrence.
There you go, sir. That's different than impossible. Listen, thank you all for testifying today.
A better question would have been, is it possible that Zalaponi's shot number 9 hit the rifle which caused the abrasion on the neck? As it's only the PSP who specifically claimed it was hit by the Secret Service's shot number 10, and it's not clear how they came to that conclusion. The counter-sniper team leader, who was next to King when he took the kill shot, was asked,
"And when shots were fired, you were looking in the direction of AGR with your partner David King, right?"
Correct. So I distinctly heard 3 shots, and then I remember King saying, "I got him."
King said,
After observing the rooftops, we kept hearing someone's on the roof. I was observing the rooftops, didn't see anything on the roof. I turned to John and I said, he's probably behind a tree. If I don't see him on a roof, he's probably behind a tree. I can't be for sure if the crowd was yelling someone is on the roof because they were right there, or it was through my earpiece. It was probably seconds leading up to his first shot. I just know that I kept hearing someone is on the roof.
Do you know if Officer Technician Marciniak heard that?
I don't know if he heard it or not.
What did you do in response to hearing that?
I went ahead and placed my rifle into the tripod, facing in that direction.
King placed his rifle into his tripod about a minute before the shooting. Maybe this was actually done in response to seeing the police or something else. Otherwise, he heard about someone on the roof earlier than he made out.
And again, did it occur to you to send out a radio alert about that?
I was trying to do my job and observe the rooftops. When the first shot rang out, I identified the location that Crooks was at, put my binos down, got on my rifle scope, looked through it, saw Crooks up on the rooftop. It looked like he was leveling back out again for another shot. I could basically just make out the tops of his shoulders and his head, and I could see his weapon. When I fired my shot, he disappeared from my sight. At the time that I was getting into my rifle and getting the lays of Crooks, that's when I assumed the 3 rounds and then 5 rounds went off.
So you did not see Mr. Crooks until after he had fired his first shot?
It was, yeah, correct.
And as you were seeing Mr. Crooks through your rifle scope, did you see him fire any shots, or did you only see him after he was done firing shots?
I didn't. Yeah, it must have been after.
So during Acting Director Rowe's testimony, he had indicated that approximately 15.5 seconds after the first shots were fired, that a Secret Service counter-sniper fired 1 shot killing the shooter. When you discharge your firearm, what was your thought process before discharging and deciding to take the shot?
I need to make sure that it was in fact a threat. It wasn't maybe a law enforcement officer. I had to make sure that area behind the target or the threat was clear, and then take my shot.
John Marciniak also indicated in his Mission Assurance Review interview that you said, "I got him." So what does this mean?
That I can see him.
Through the scope of your rifle?
If I say I got him, it's through the scope of my rifle.
Can you please state for the record what these notes are?
These notes are something I wrote after the shooting.
So if we sort of go down on the first page here, about the 4th line down, it reads,
At approximately 6:15, I noticed people running at the 3 o'clock position of the site. I noticed that there were law enforcement in the site and outside the site moving to building at the 3 o'clock. I and my teammate positioned ourselves to observe the area that everyone was moving to. I noticed an individual white male, white or gray shirt, low crawling on the roof. I noticed an AR-style weapon in his hands. As I moved to observe through my rifle scope, I heard weapon fire. I immediately got a laser rangefinder distance from my weapon-mounted laser rangefinder. I looked up to see my engagement dope. Looked back through the scope, observed the individual shooting, and engaged. At that time, the shooter dropped out of my sight in the scope.
You said you saw the individual crawling. Does that mean you saw him crawling with a weapon?
No. What I was trying to get at is when I saw him, he was on the peak of the roof, in his firing position, and as soon as he was identified, the shots went out.
So you didn't see him until he was in his position?
Correct. In his position, and basically at the moment of firing.
I see. So when you wrote crawling, you didn't mean that in terms of he was actively transporting anywhere. He was in position, static.
Yes, sir.
So did you see him, either through your binoculars or your scope, before he started firing, or not?
No. I did not see him through naked eye or binos prior to him shooting.
So I'm just looking back at your handwritten notes. I noticed an AR-style weapon in his hands. As I moved to observe through my rifle scope, I heard weapon fire.
I apologize if my notes were off. I observed the individual after he started shooting, because I was looking on the rooftop, trying to find an individual, on whatever rooftop. It wasn't until he began to fire that it actually directed me to where he was. And when I wrote those notes, it was after I got off the roof, and I was trying to hurry up, and, in the heat of everything. Sorry.
As can be seen in the footage, King drops his binoculars and goes to his rifle over 7 seconds before the first shot, and 23 seconds before he returned fire.
I'm going to go to Exhibit 6. It's the 87-page Pennsylvania State Police report. King then overheard attendees from the crowd yelling that someone was on the roof. King and Marciniak then repositioned themselves toward the AGR building and began searching the rooftops of the complex with both their naked eyes and binoculars. As King begins to pan his sight line back toward the crowd, he observes Crooks appear atop the roof of Building 4 and advises Marciniak. King assumes a shooting position with his rifle locked into a tripod. While observing through his rifle optic, King sees Crooks in a prone shooting position and armed with a rifle. Marciniak provides King with direction that he does not need to adjust his point of aim, as no crosswind was present. King activates a laser rangefinder system affixed to his rifle, receiving a distance to the target of approximately 200 yards. Moments later, King could hear the sonic disturbances of gunfire emanating from Crooks' location. King then discharged one round from his rifle into Crooks, at which time Crooks slumped away and did not appear to re-engage. Any inaccuracies in what I read, or anything that needs to be clarified?
So basically, when you're reading it, it makes it look like I have all the time in the world from when I identified his location to me shooting. If there was a way to recreate the exact thing that happened that day, that would be the only way for anybody to understand what I did and what I saw.
And all I'm trying to just get from you is whether or not you feel that what I just read is accurate.
I mean, from what I can recall. I mean, I like to say I relive that moment every day, but I try not to.
Yo, Tess, you got me up once. Give me up again. All right. Good. We need one more. Ready? Ready? Yep. All right, ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Here.
The task force final report states, a Washington SWAT operator searched Crooks' pockets and pulled out a radio transmitter resembling a garage door opener, raising suspicions that Crooks possessed or placed an improvised explosive device in the area.
It looks very similar to like a garage door opener. It's got numbers 1 through 12 on it.
Got
it
a
had
removable
a 9-volt
antenna too.
An extendable antenna. Yep, let me know.
Agents from the ATF ordered an immediate E-trace for Crooks' rifle. The resulting E-trace report led back to Crooks' father. At approximately 9:20 p.m., ATF special agents were instructed to prepare to travel to Crooks' residence. BPPD established covert surveillance of Crooks' residence at approximately 10:45 p.m. At 10:56 p.m., Crooks' father placed a 911 call regarding his son.
Hi, yes, my name's Matthew Crooks. I was calling in regards to my son, Thomas. He belongs to the Clareton Sportsman Club in Clareton. The reason I'm calling is he left the house here at about 1:45 this afternoon, and we've gotten no contact from him, no text messages, nothing's been returned, and he's not home yet. That's totally not like him.
ATF and PSP personnel approached Crooks' residence at approximately 11:40 p.m. After identifying themselves as law enforcement, Crooks' father exited the residence, stepped onto the front porch, and asked something to the effect of, "Is it true? CNN called me and told me that Thomas shot Trump." Crooks' father then provided verbal consent for investigators to enter and search the residence. By 11:45 p.m, the investigators discovered suspected IED components and construction materials in Crooks' bedroom. FBI special agents arrived on scene shortly thereafter and, together with ATF special agents, began to interview Crooks' father at 11:57 p.m. During the interview, Crooks' father stated that he had previously sold the rifle to his son for $500. One of the ATF agents said that Crooks' mother asked if he was really dead and was told yes. She started to cry and the father put out his hand and said something like, "It's okay, it's not true until we see the body." The ATF agent said,
"I didn't get into politics. He kind of opened that door and made a comment how his son would go back and forth and kind of argue both sides. He mentioned Trump and Biden. But he said that he never really indicated that he liked one or the other more than the other one. That his son was always right in arguments. He loved to debate things. He was a history buff. He didn't have any friends. He kept to himself. No girlfriends."
Using the description provided by Crooks' father, Allegheny EOD discovered Crooks' vehicle parked along Whitestown Road near the front of the AGR complex at approximately 12:30 a.m. Upon examining the car, the Allegheny EOD identified 2 IEDs in the trunk. They collected samples of the materials used to build the IEDs and destroyed the remaining explosive materials. According to the FBI analysis, the 2 IEDs found in Crooks' car consisted of an ammo box, commercial wireless receiver, electric match, and a rolled cardboard tube inside the ammo box containing an explosive filler and explosive main charge. Each IED also contained a fusing or initiation system. The main explosive charge consisted of ammonium nitrate prills, nitromethane, and smokeless powder. The handheld remote transmitter found on Crooks' body by local law enforcement as they secured his person was active with a 9-volt battery and was set in the off position. The transmitter was capable of activating multiple receivers with a single button when properly paired. The 2 IEDs found in Crooks' vehicle were fully assembled and configured to be remotely detonated through activation by the handheld remote transmitter and had been paired with receivers adhered to the IEDs. The receivers were all in the off position. Each of these would require manually changing the switch to turn on and could not be switched on remotely. The component combination Crooks used was, per an FBI expert, unusual. Crooks' ambitions exceeded his capabilities and had complexities that were not required and had failure points. Per the FBI, anyone within 10 feet of the IEDs, had they been successfully detonated, would have immediately been killed.
Shells over here on both sides. Looks like what, at least 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At least 8. You got a clean round for his back. You know who hit him?
The FBI collected and matched a total of 10 bullet cartridges to the 3 rifles it collected from Crooks, local law enforcement, and the Secret Service, which account for the 10 total shots fired on July 13. 8 cartridges were found on the roof of AGR Building 6 by Crooks' body. 1 cartridge was located in a field by the tents where the local law enforcement officer fired at Crooks, and 1 cartridge was located by the Secret Service counter-snipers perch on the south barn. They successfully identified 6 of the 10 bullet trajectories. Specifically, the FBI identified all 6 trajectories as originating from the north of the stage in the direction of the AGR complex from which Crooks shot. 2 trajectories travelled over the stage, with one hitting the vinyl cover for a jumbo television screen trailer behind the right bleacher, and the other hitting the barn door of a green warehouse south of the stage and bleachers.
Take a look at what happened.
Trump's ear was grazed on the first shot, which also hit the railing on the south bleachers. David Dutch was wounded on the second shot. James Copenhaver was wounded twice during the second volley. Corey Comperatore was shot and killed on the 6th shot. You can see his hat go flying. If we line up the first gunshot from these 2 videos, we can see that the next 7 shots stay in alignment because the time it takes to reach each microphone remains consistent, as all 8 shots came from the same location. But Zalaponi's shot number 9 goes out of alignment because it came from a different location. Pair this with the video of the first shell casing being ejected, and we can safely say that all 8 shots were fired by Crooks on the roof. You may find the following segment upsetting.
I finally received Corey's phone back from the FBI. So I clicked on the very first photo and it happened to be a video. It starts when President Trump turns to look at the graph and he's pointing. So I knew immediately that it was going to be the shooting.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
You see Corey duck down, then he gets shot. And then his phone falls, it almost falls to like a slight angle like this. And there's like blood splatter, and then you can hear everything for 3.5 minutes. Just hearing your kids scream like that, it's just torture. No kid should ever have to go through that.
One shot right here, Mike. One shot right here. Heads up, heads up. Make hole! Make hole! Make way, make way! Make a hole! Pull it down right side! Make a hole! Make a hole! Yes, hole!
Trump returned to Butler 12 weeks later.
Corey Comperatore was a incredible husband and father, a devout Christian, a veteran, and a proud former fire chief, very respected within the town. Everybody knew him. Few men volunteered to run into fires, but Corey was one of those who did. He ran into fires. I spoke to people that were with this guy would do anything. He was brave, right? Brave guy like you. And he was also a protector who put his life on the line for others, and he loved doing it. At this time, it is 6/11, 12 weeks to the minute that the shooting began. I would like to ask everyone to join me in a moment of silence.